Hello again, book lovers. The Flashman novels by George MacDonald Fraser. Well, where to start? Again, back to fiction as a long-term project that I'd had, as when I've got the time in the future, I'll read the Flashman novels. I've heard so much about them, and now I have the time, so I bought myself the first two, because I thought, well, if I like the first one, I might as well read the second in sequence, and that's what I did. So that tells you that I liked the first one enough to go on with the entertainment, and entertaining it is. I don't know how much you know about the Flashman novels. Basically, it's a character who is a rake and a cad, a terrible person, even by his own admission, hides nothing of his cowardice and his use and abuse of other people. He's a fictional person based on a bully at a public school who featured in Tom Brown's School Days as the school bully of rugby. So we've got a fictional character and we're imagining what his life was subsequent to being expelled fictionally from the real school, rugby school. And he has the most amazing adventures in the style of Tom Jones, I would say, or Jack the Fatalist, these kind of expansive romps through history in this case, as each novel is set at a different time in history. So the idea is someone's discovered these papers after he's died and we're looking back through them, and lo and behold, look what he did. He had, rather unwillingly, had a lot of effect on great well-known moments in history. The first one is set in Afghanistan, the shameful retreat of the British Army. The second one is set in the midst of a dispute between Denmark and Germany, featuring Otto von Bismarck. It's got little footnotes at the end which I'll check out, as they're supposed to be checking out the fictitious story of Harry Flashman. And a friend of mine remarked to me that these in their day were known as rather racy novels to have, especially if you're at a boarding school. They were published in 1969 and probably passed around secretly among schoolboys, because yes, they have episodes of sex that would today be considered of passing interest. But at the same time, they were rather admired by the teachers because they actually taught you a bit of history, and you can rely on the history in the Flashman novels. So, our author, George MacDonald Fraser, weaves this character in and out of history in a very amusing manner, and I could end there. I will carry on reading these, and they're very easy to read. They're a light frolic. However, looked at through the lens of today, I think we'd have a trigger warning on every page, at least under some unpleasant behaviour. In the first book there's a rape, which he admittedly says he didn't really want to do. He'd much rather women were submissive, and he only did it once, so, you know. Now, you can think what you like about that, but that's the character we're dealing with, and that's half the spice of the novel. Right at the start of the second novel, on the first page indeed, we get a nice list of people it's okay to be rude to, which are, I quote, servants, tarts, bagmen, shopkeepers and foreigners. So this is the kind of guy we have to take as our hero. The word nigger appears, referring to the Indians of India. Later on we get black bastards. This is the hero that launches us into fantastic, in both senses of the word, adventures. In a way, I can't see what there is to complain about this terrible behaviour, because, alright, admission is no justification, even if it's a fictional character admitting it literally at 2 removes. But on the other hand, it lays bare exactly the type of personality that went out to represent British colonialism and the real attitude they had towards the natives that they considered beneath them. Of course, there are honourable exceptions, many of whose stories we know, but isn't it more advantageous to get a flavour of the arrogance and hostility that a lot of these incursive foreigners had towards the lands that they were in? I would have thought that was kind of grist for the mill to any liberal-leaning person. I suppose it depends how much bad language and bad attitude you can take. Anyway, there's a lot of other bad people in the novels that get their comeuppances, if that's the plural, and it's full of the laconic attitude of the terribly boastful, upper-class, entitled snob of the day. Here's a nice little snippet. Travelling is the greatest bore in life, so I won't weary you with etc, etc. That's a little one that I enjoyed reading. He also makes reference to a punishment that the Afghan women did to prisoners. He doesn't say what, but with Mr. Fraser's reputation for accuracy and my scant knowledge of history of that region, I do think I know what he's referring to. In fact, it's hinted at in the second novel as well, so it obviously made the same kind of impression on me as it did on Mr. Fraser. Add to that the fact that the novels are nicely atmospheric, and once you get into them, I think as a reader, and I also think as the author, I think he got more and more into the rhythm of writing them, at least judging on the first two. The wry smile content increased towards the end of novel 2 on my part. Anyway, there you go. I liked them. You have been warned.